Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. I am so excited to have a guest on today. Her name is Charmi, and she has a business called Cimply Fit, and she is a nutrition coach and a personal trainer. And we have been Facebook acquaintances for a while, and we recently connected in what we call in real life, not in person, but of course, a one-to-one basis. And I just loved her energy and I loved what she's doing in the world to help South Asian women. That's why she's on here today. Welcome, Charmi.
Thank you so much, Visa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I don't want to butcher the specialty of what you do. So I would love for you to first of all share what you do.
Okay, so what I do is I coach men, well, mostly women. Every now and then I have coached men as well, but mostly women in the age group of mid 40s. I coach them on nutrition. It's typically almost always geared towards weight loss, but it can also be certain chronic conditions like hypothyroid or diabetes 2 or type 2 diabetes. So I help women just basically regain control of their health and build a healthier relationship with food without overthinking it and overwhelming themselves.
That's wonderful. I know for a fact that so many women that listen to this show struggle
Mhm.
with weight and their body image and stubborn weight that you cannot get off after maybe having had a baby or we are entering through certain
Mhm.
stages of our life because I think you specialize in perimenopause and premenopause. Is that correct?
So it's perimenopause and menopausal. So perimenopause is just could last you like 10 years. Typically, any woman in her 30s is beginning to enter that stage where she's considered premenopause, and then perimenopause is where you feel some of the symptoms, but you still get your period regularly. So you completely haven't shut down factory there yet, but you're beginning to feel a difference in your body, although you've got your periods. And then menopause is when that's it, that your periods are done with and you've entered a new phase in your life.
So what might some of those symptoms be? Because I just turned 40, so I'm still getting my periods regularly. So
Yeah.
what might be some of the things that I need to look out for me to realize, okay, I'm entering this new phase of my life?
Right. So some of the most common symptoms are hot flushes, just mood swings, unexplained symptoms of depression. And it has all just to do with just hormone regulation. Like your hormones are hitting a new normal. So your reproductive hormones, like your three estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, are beginning to lower and sitting into a new normal. So obviously your body is going to start feeling different. So there's stubborn weight gain that happens. That is definitely one of the most popular things that most women see in their mid 40s. So those are, and then hair loss, or just waking up at night not able to sleep really well. So those are the very, very common symptoms of women who are beginning to enter perimenopause. And then once your hormones set, then these symptoms disappear.
Hmm. Well, I've certainly had some of those that is resonating with me, the things that you're saying. So I've had a lot of hair loss in the last 2 years.
Right.
But I know some people say it could be COVID related because of all the stress that we've had in the last 2 years of the pandemic.
Yeah.
The other day, for the first time, I woke up sweating, covered in sweat. That has never happened before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you're like, don't touch me, like nobody touch me, just let me be. And you can't explain that. You're like, what in the world is going on? But yes, that is definitely a symptom.
Yeah, I've heard of night women having night sweats, and it's never happened. And then I woke up that day drenched like I'd run a marathon or something. It was insane. So my next question is, why is weight loss and in general just fitness journey so challenging for a lot of people? And that includes me. I'll go through phases of my life where I'm very good about working out.
Yeah.
And then there are phases in my life where I just cannot be bothered. Like for the last 4 or 5 months, I haven't really moved my body. And now I'm having
Right.
to force myself to at least do like 15, 20-minute YouTube workouts just to get my body moving again.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people go through that up and down phase? And why is it hard to be consistent?
So, we have, as I'm part of the industry. I love the industry, but the thing is, it is still very much that diet culture which was, I don't know, introduced back in the 70s and 80s, where it's like, you've got to lose weight and you've got to do it in this much time. Like, it's so deadline based. And so when someone starts their journey, they have this expectation that they're going to lose weight in a month, and it's going to be like a ton of weight. And if that doesn't happen, then they feel very, very down and out on themselves. They feel like they failed at something, right? So that negatively impacts. And so then people stop their journey. They're like, oh, okay, forget it, and then I'll start again and then stop again. So we get very good. We develop this amazing skill of stopping and pausing things constantly. We never develop a skill of really just maintaining that consistency. So when you see, and there's always these before after pictures, which are just amazing, and that impacts us mentally. And so we think that, oh my God, they must have done something right, and I want that result, and so I'm going to do what they're doing. And then these are usually lofty goals, like give up sugars completely, give up all your carbs, and then you're going to drop all this weight. But no one really cares to ask these people, like, did you really enjoy the journey? Are you going to keep that weight off? What does your family's tree look like? And so we never deep dive into that, right? It's just like the visual that, oh my God. And almost always the sign of a healthy person has been promoted as someone who's very skinny and has these curves and stuff, where I've been on that diet side when I competed and on the for physique competition. There were a ton of sacrifices that required for me to shred to that point. I enjoyed the journey because I knew I was doing this for a reason. Now, if I had to live my life like that, I'd probably be extremely miserable, probably make my family's life miserable, right? So people find it hard because they set these huge goals that I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, an hour every day, cut out all sugars, cut out all happiness from my life. And then that doesn't last very long. Now, there is another version, which is super unsexy. There's nothing glamorous about it. It is just making tiny little changes, small habit changes that feel like nothing right now, but down the road they compound and the benefits are immense. But we don't have that patience. We're so used to those microwave results. We don't want to cook it in the crock pot anymore. We're just like, press a button and it should be done. And that's when it becomes very hard for people to stay on that path, because they're like, this feels like nothing, like this, it can be this easy, when in fact it really is. We just overcomplicate it. And the out there, the big wig, the big companies out there just trying to play with people's emotions and being like, don't you just hate how you look in the mirror? Especially the women. It's easiest to target the women. And it's just hopefully there's still a long way to go, but there's some changes happening in that way, in that respect, to kind of shift the focus to having lifestyle changes.
It's so interesting what you mentioned. It brought something up for me. So I was traveling this past weekend. I went to see, family, and I'm very close to like all my cousin sisters, and they're all older than me. Mm-hmm. So, we're all in the kitchen munching, and one of my cousins said, "Oh my gosh, Visa, you can get away with eating whatever you want, because I've always been skinny all my life, and I've never struggled with weight." And funnily enough, another one of my cousin sisters said, we're always trained to eat or not eat something because of weight. But this isn't about weight. This is about health. And I thought, oh, there, she hit the nail on the head right there. I think, especially in Indian culture, South Asian culture, we are like, if you're lean and skinny, you're beautiful, and nobody ever says anything about your weight. But the minute you start to show your, some midriff section or whatever, you're deemed overweight, people start commenting on it. And so we're always trained to think of weight loss and nutrition, like you said, to go for the weight loss, but it's never about a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. It's never about a healthy lifestyle because it's just not attractive enough. Like, how do you sell that to someone that, oh, you just have to make this one habit change? They're like,
right,
no.
It's not sexy enough. It's not glamorous enough.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So for me, nutrition, I've really honed in on that, focused on that. But like you said, it's very hard to make it like all at once and to make it last. And I found that, I've cut out 80-90% of sugar in my life, but I still allow myself a few drops of stevia in my tea, and I'll enjoy the odd cake here and there. And that is a lot more sustainable.
Right. Yeah, you want to have a you don't want to restrict and then just like go all out and be like, okay, that's it. Forget this. I'm just gonna eat everything.
Right, right. It really sets you up to fail, and it's hard to measure success, like to have the small wins, right? Because that's what's going to keep you going.
Right.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about, or you dropped a hint about having your own. I think you said you trained to be in like a fitness show. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So it was just something that, I had this little bug in my head, like you got to compete and do something. So I
Tell
had.
tell us more about that story.
Yeah, so it was, I don't even, how did this happen? Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like, it was so weird. Like, there, how you meet people and there's just no accidents. Like, there's a reason they came into your life. So I actually met a lady at my gym. I didn't know she was Indian, but she was very like focused on her workouts and stuff. I was like, oh, it'd be cool. I don't often see that many women. And so I talked to her, and it turns out she was Indian, the mom of 2 kids, and she was a powerlifter. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I got talking to her, and then I was like, I think I could compete. And so now I was like, let me try doing the bodybuilding competition. I had this self-limiting belief that my body's not cut out for it. There's no way I'm gonna be able to get there because I'm South Asian genetics. I'm little. I have all these genetic, predispositions from my mom's side. So I was like, let me see what happens. And then I got on the program with a coach. I picked a competition. I've prepped for 7 months, and I gave up. Like, I literally gave up a lot of things right from day one. And it was a funny story when I asked her, I was like, can I have this chai I make? Like, it's homemade. And it's funny, that coach was like, oh, is it like the Starbucks chai tea? And I was like, no, 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 it's not that. But she didn't understand. She's like, yeah, no, you could just do black coffee. So it's like, okay. So I had to give up chai, which was like hard to do. And I got on to like actually eating the diet food, chicken and broccoli, like literally pretty much every meal. But I enjoyed the process because I did it with a view to seeing how disciplined I truly am. I thought I was like super disciplined, amazing, going to the gym. So I was like, let me see if this pushes me out of my comfort zone. That was my real goal, to do it. And it really challenged me, really, really challenged me, because I had to make it a priority. And then I enjoyed it, made some amazing people backstage, met a lot of people from different walks of life. It was so fun. I really enjoyed that process. And if I was in my 20s, I'd probably be a competitor right now. But I did this at the age of 44. And I was like, yeah, I don't think my body can handle this.
Wow, that's amazing. And oh my gosh, I could do an entire episode about the things we learn when we push ourselves and do
Yeah,
things completely outside of the wheelhouse of what we're normally used to, what we think we can
yeah,
do. Like
yeah.
a year ago, I signed up to do an Everesting challenge, to climb 29,029 feet
Wow, that's amazing.
within 36 hours. And I hate, like I hate working out. I hate doing anything fitness related. And I was like, just like you, I met somebody who'd done that event. And I was like, I wonder whether I can do that. And then I just signed up. And then before you know it, you're doing it, right?
Doing it, exactly. You have to have a carrot dangling in front of you. It's just so you have, that motivation stays.
Yeah. So I would love to hear how you ended up in the profession that you're in now, like starting your own business,
Yeah.
realizing that my purpose in life is to help women with these struggles. Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I was always passionate about working out. I have my dad to thank for it. He always instilled, fitness into our life. And long before consistency was a buzzword, he had told me when I was a teenager that you need to be consistent in your fitness, and it should come to you as naturally as brushing your teeth every morning. So now that I'm there, I'm like, oh my God, everyone talks about it now. My dad told me about it years ago. So, you don't listen to your dad or mom when you're a teenager, but those words stay with you. Anyway, so funny enough, I was always working out, but I was actually fired from a job. And then I was walking, and I started interviewing, and I was like, do I really want to be stuck behind a desk again? And then I was like, no, I just want to do this. I really want to try this out. I would always see the personal trainers at my gym. They'd have this t-shirt which would say master trainer. I was like, I'd love to have one of those t-shirts. And so I on a whim, I said, okay, I'm gonna launch this. I spent less than $100, bought secondhand equipment, and spent like $10 on my business cards and put it on Facebook. And I was like, if it fails, no big money is lost. Like, I'll just keep the equipment. And if it works, it works. So I started as a personal trainer, traveling to women's homes to train them, because I would never see that many women on the weight area. I would always see them running up to the Zumba and the, kickboxing classes. Nobody wanted to lift. And I was like, this would be nice for me to teach them in the privacy of their homes why weight training is so beneficial and there's nothing to be scared about. And then it took off and I did well at it. And then I realized nutrition is a big piece that's missing. So I got certified in nutrition then. And then I started coaching women on nutrition, mainly habits, not so much like overhauling their diet, just little habits. And that's what I've been doing since then.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Isn't it amazing how like the worst thing that can happen to us, in this case, you getting fired, leads to like
Yeah.
the most beautiful opportunities?
And honestly, at that time when I got fired, I was like, what a jerk. Like, he fired me while I was on vacation. He couldn't even wait. And after I took this off, I was like, if he hadn't fired me, I probably wouldn't have started this. Like, I'd still be stuck at that dead end job with this boss, which karma has its way, because then all his employees walked out on him one day because he was just like that
Wow.
bad. So anyway, I was like, if I could see him again, I'd probably shake his hand and be like, thank you for doing what you did, because if you hadn't, I probably wouldn't be doing this today.
Yeah, so I know this is not fitness or nutrition related, but one of the takeaways here is that what you believe the worst thing to be happening to you at any point in your life, not just getting fired, right? Like a health thing that might crop up. Like during that time, it is the worst thing that happens to us because we are suffering and we're in pain and we've been hurt, right?
Right.
And the worst things that we think about ourselves will feel like they're coming true. But then over time, we can absolutely use that pain to turn it into a power and like the lessons that we learn
Yes.
from it.
Yes. Yeah. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah, the worst thing to ever happen to me was when I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, like now 17 years ago. At that time, I thought my life was over. I was so depressed.
Right.
And I was playing the victim and I was like, why me? Everybody else in my family is healthy. Why did this happen to me, you know? But that health diagnosis really led me to discovering who I truly was, which is I started seeking, alternative solutions rather than just what Western medicine was prescribing to me at the time.
Right.
I sought like nutrition coaching, right? And that's when I learned how much diet, not dieting, depriving yourself, but like the diet, the food that you put inside of you
Yeah. Yeah.
affects your health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, you give your clients just tips here and there to make small changes over a consistent period of time builds to big results.
Right.
Could you share maybe a few tips of what you share with your clients? I know every person is different and the advice you give will be different, but just some general things.
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, I just started a group coaching program yesterday, in fact. So I have a bunch of women and they all have different unique needs, but I was like, okay, let's start slow. So literally it's like, I was like, okay, start with having enough water throughout the day. And then I gave them a reason why, like, it's okay. You've heard about, okay, you should drink water, but why is that important? So interestingly, most of them have very sedentary jobs. So I was like, here's the thing. You drink a lot of water, you're forced to get up and go use the restroom. So you're forcing your body to not sit for that long period of time. Secondly, water is going to keep you full longer. Thirdly, water is going to help you distinguish between hunger and thirst. So it's a very simple thing. Now we break that down even further. So I'm like, okay, how do you make sure you have enough water? Because it's very general for me to tell you have enough water. Like that can mean anything to anybody. So I was like, okay. So I took like, I had a little bottle and I took a tall bottle and then I showed them what I drink. I was like, pick any container of any size. I don't care. All you need to do is finish that container 3 times throughout the day. Okay. So you drink it once, finish it, fill it up, drink it a second time. 3. So we break that down. Okay. Then I was like, okay, let's break it down even further. You wake up in the morning, have a glass of water. Okay. You're cooking, sip on water. You're listening to me talk to you, sip on water. You are watching something on TikTok, sip on water. You're working, sip on water. You break it down even further down. Now, what that does is that these little habits, they begin to stay with you. So if you ever finish, like if you're on a program and you finish the program, you know exactly how to get back on track, whatever that
Yeah.
looks but right. So that's habit. Now there's nothing sexy about it, like nothing like unique about it, but you just break it down and it stays with you. Another one that we are working on is add veggies to your lunch and dinner. I don't care how the veggies are cooked, raw, whatever, just add veggies to your lunch and dinner. That simplifies it. So they were like, okay, but what veggies? I was like, nothing, baby carrots and cucumbers, just add that, lunch and dinner, make it simple, just simplify that decision. So they're like, oh, okay. So that makes it easier. So these are small changes, right? So now if you're going out to eat, you know that if you're getting a pasta dish, how do you add veggies? You just ask them for a little salad on the side. And that's, you simplify that. So those are the tiny little changes I help them make. And we're looking for consistency, because there's going to come a day where you got deadlines, so how do you make sure that you still have this? So you just buy the ready-made baby carrots and tiny cucumbers, keep it handy, and you can still maintain some consistency in your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something really important, which is breaking it down, understanding the why. Because a lot of times we're given advice and we
Yeah,
don't understand the why.
exactly.
And with any, even in my life coaching business, people tell me, I usually ask them, what is like your big goal that we're working towards or whatever? And they'll tell me it. And then I'll go, why? And then
Yeah,
they'll give me a reason. And then I'll be like, well, why do you want that? And then why do you want that? Like we have to go 6, 7 layers
yeah,
deep in
yeah.
order to get to the real why, so that the next time you don't feel like doing the thing, taking the action, you get back to the why. So just to explain about the water example was so powerful. It's like, yeah, I know I need to drink enough water, but what you said about getting those steps in
Right.
and feeling fuller for longer so that you're not munching on junk food because you're hungry,
Yes.
that's wonderful. And then what you said about, you're on TikTok, you're like scrolling through a phone, sip on some water, right? Like I read this book on how do you create healthy habits. We've
Yes.
got to attach the new habit to an already existing habit that then
Exactly.
stimulates the new habit.
Mhm.
And so you're doing that exactly that for your clients.
Right. And your old habits are so ingrained in you, and some of it is like from your childhood. They're going to pull you back. They're very powerful, like an elastic. They're going to pull you back. But what happens is with your new habits, the more you put them into bite-sized pieces, it takes away that decision-making power. I mean, it takes away that decision-making necessity. Like you don't have to make a decision of how do I drink enough water. You just create a system, because your mental space from the minute you wake up is occupied by making decisions for your job, for your in-laws, for your parents, for your kids, your spouse, big decisions. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So then add another decision of like, oh, when do I drink water? That's when most people are like, I can't do this. Like, I can't. I don't know when to drink the water. So you break it down to such simple things that it becomes a system. And so then you're like, oh, I don't even have to think about it. And it's so much easier to follow through. And that's when you feel like I'm making changes in my life. Like these are wins, and they compound over time.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying, I just had another question pop into my mind. So I'm Indian,
Mhm.
grew up in England, and now I live in the US. But first and foremost, we're all Indians, right? Like no matter where we go, we take our culture with us. And
Absolutely.
so, white rice is a huge part of what I eat on a daily basis. And, like wheat based stuff, like so rotis or what we call chapatis, right? And I eat a lot of dosa and idlis because I'm South Indian.
Yes.
So if I were to come to you as a client, and let's say a lot of it is lentil based, and I do eat a lot of vegetables and fruits,
Yeah.
but I feel like I still eat a lot of this what we call white food, right? Like
Right.
the
Right.
idlis and the dosas and the white rice. And then of course you come around to like Diwali, and we have a lot of Indian festivals sprinkled throughout the year. So sweets and fried food is a huge part of our culture, and
Right.
we go to parties. And so, what do you recommend to your clients they do? Because these are some, I would say, traps that maybe white people don't have, right? Because they have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and maybe that's it, or Easter,
That's it.
right?
Yeah, that's it. So first of all, I always explain to my clients that no food is good or bad. So let's stop demonizing them. And, with our Indian food, everything, there's a story, right? Like, for example, you cook dosa, typically it's like, oh, this is how my mom used to make it, or my nan or my grandma used to do it. There's always a story attached to these things. Now you're trying to it's not just food, like there's an identity right there. Right. So
there's an emotion attached to it.
Yeah. So I'm Gujarati. I often get asked by a lot of people, so do you know how to make undiyu, which is a Gujarati dish? And I'm like, I don't, but that's an identity that's attached to Gujaratis. So, I tell my clients, let's not demonize it. Typically, when anybody is struggling with weight gain or just an unhealthy lifestyle, it's never the one food. It's always a culmination of different things. It's like not eating at the right times, or eating a lot of fried things at a time when you are super hungry, but it's not dinner time. I was like, it's really those underlying foundational habits. It's never the one food. So they do get to eat white rice. They do eat the idli and dosa. Then I tell them, okay, let's work on balancing it, because clearly you eat one dosa and a little chutney, it's not going to take you very far. You're going to get hungry in like 30 minutes. How do you balance it out? So let's add maybe some vegetables on the side. Let's add a little bit of extra protein on the side and make that more balanced to keep you full for a longer period of time. So my goal is to reconfigure their plate with them, not completely overhaul and demonize these things. So there's one of my clients, she has hypothyroid. She loves her roti. And with somebody with hypothyroid, gluten is not highly recommended, but she loves it. So I'm like, all right, let's not take it out just yet, just add more to your plate. So she balances it with a lot more vegetables, a lot more dal, and minimizes the roti, but she still gets to eat it.
That's so beautiful, because you don't want that client to demonize like just weight loss in general, right? Because if you take away something that she absolutely adores and deprive her of it, then she's not going to be enjoying the journey, because this is really about learning to enjoy the journey.
And also, a lot of us know how to lose the weight. We don't know how to keep it off. Maintenance of weight loss is a harder journey than actually losing the weight. So, many of us have gone through that phase of dropping the weight. We drop the weight, comes back, drop the weight. So clearly the issue is not dropping the weight. The issue is how to keep it off. And that is built on sustainable habits and a mindset shift. And mindset shift is a healthy, proactive relationship with food, as opposed to having a fearful relationship with food and being reactive to eating. You just respond in terms of when food's in front of you, you respond. You're not like, it's not a knee-jerk reaction then.
Yeah.
And then if I was to tell them you can't eat this for the duration of my program, they won't, but then they're just gonna go back and eat it. So it really didn't work.
Yeah, and you want clients. I mean, the whole point of you working with clients is not to bring them back. It's to set them up fundamentally in a way that's going to help them win for a really, really long time.
Exactly. And if they do come back, it's just for accountability, which goes a long way, but the foundational principles stay intact. And so I've had clients who I worked with maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. When I see them, they're like, you taught me about that. I still follow that. And that is a win with a habit-based, program, where you take your nutrition based on habits, not just on the typical diet plan or, that I get asked all the time.
Now, in Desi culture, South Asian culture, a lot of Indians are vegetarians, like including me. I became a vegetarian a couple of, like 18 months ago, and I love it. I don't plan on going back. But then I find that when I'm reading about healthy nutrition and things like that, they talk about eating a lot of protein, right? And protein typically before you become a vegetarian is through meat-based products. So what would you recommend in terms of who are vegetarians, your clients who are vegetarians, how do you recommend they get enough protein?
Yeah, so 99% of my clients are vegetarian. And even if there are Indians who are non-vegetarian, I've noticed that they can't do meat more than once a day. And even that is a stretch. Most people prefer to do it maybe 2 to 3 times a week. They can't do like the Americans where you eat it, multiple times a day, every day of the week. So with them, what I tell them is your protein is going to come from dals, peas, lentils, and that's great. Just understand that that also comes with a nice big chunk of carbs. Not bad, because this also comes with some amount of fiber. So with these clients, what I begin to have them pay attention to is focus more on how much protein you're getting out of these foods and how much fiber you're getting. And automatically you will notice that if, say, you do a bowl of black eyed peas, which is very high in fiber, but also very high in carbs, you will automatically begin to see that, okay, my carbs are going up. So maybe I can reduce processed carbs. And once you start like really paying attention, you notice that more your carbs are beginning to come from like dals and stuff and vegetables and a little bit of fruit. So then the other foods, they just take a backseat by themselves. Right. I
Beautiful.
don't harp on that, like, oh no, you have to do protein. I try to tell them, okay, try to at least have some beans or peas or something on the side, and maybe some non-fat Greek yogurt once a day will add to it. And the recommendations are like, oh, this much protein per pound of body weight. It can be a very intimidating number.
Yes.
So it's like, oh my God, like hitting 100 grams of protein in a day is not a joke. So if someone's starting out, I'm like, listen, let's just simplify it. Let's try and hit 50 to 75 grams. If the person's a bit more seasoned and knows about nutrition, I'm like, okay, let's do 75 to 100, but give you a range. So you
Mm,
like, oh my God, I didn't hit 150 grams today. Like I just failed at it. No, let's not do that.
yeah. I would love to learn what are some of your own challenges and pitfalls that you found along your own journey?
Yeah. So in my mid 40s, so of course, COVID did a number on me.
Mm,
And it's not COVID. It was just like, there was no gyms, and then everyone's at home. And my pantry, like I would go grocery shopping with my husband for the first time in I don't know how many years. He started going grocery shopping with me because he was free. So we would go into the grocery store with one cart, would come up with two full carts. So all those foods in the house started like, I was just enjoying my time, whatever. So I was like, oh, I've gained weight. It's fine. I'll lose it. It was a struggle to lose it. I was like,
mm,
what the heck? Like I just competed last year. There's no way this has to be this hard. But yeah, I noticed like my weight gain was stubborn and it was real. So I had to dial in and begin to really track my food. And then it started coming off. But I did not go the route of extra workouts, because that's where most people think like, let me just work out more. And that's because after you work out, you have a sense of instant gratification, right? You feel great, you feel sweaty, you feel lighter. So most people, that's where they fall for that. But I had to like, and I was beginning to fall for that. I was like, no, 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 let's just focus here on the nutrition. So I had to really dial it in. And I started with just simple habit, right? I was like, yeah, this is a story. I actually went back to my prep coach. I signed up with her in a state of desperation, which is how
mm.
most of my clients sign up with me, in the state of desperation. Like, you got to help me. I signed up with her, 16 weeks, did nothing, just did not happen. And I was like, okay, I'm not signing up with her again. Let me just figure out what the heck's going on with me. And I started with literally just one habit: eating at 80% full. So I learned to eat just enough so I was not stuffed, left a little room in my stomach. I didn't even care about what it was. I was like, let's not worry about that. It's the summer. There's going to be a lot of eating out and some vacations. So just with one habit, 80% full. I started just with that.
Mm.
Then I started with my water habit. I was like, okay, that comes easy. I can handle it. Then I started with walking my dog. So I was like, okay, sense of responsibility. I got to walk her. Then I stacked my walk. I used that as a warm up. And then I started working out. So that became my habit: walk and then workout, walk and then workout. So I started back to like, I literally followed my own program to start dropping the inches. Then I got deep into really dialing in and tracking even deeper, going really deep into tracking my food. And now at this point, I track my protein and I track my fiber, because at this mid 40s, it's recommended that you get 25 to 35 grams of fiber, which is a struggle and not easy, and track my protein, just those two things. And I'm on that path right now.
I love what you said. One of the things that you said like hit a nerve with me because I'm pretty sure I stuff myself every meal. Like I'm really blessed in that I've always been able to eat as much as I want, whatever I want, and still able to maintain like a lean physique.
Yes.
But like I just turned 40 and I know at some point that is going to probably change because your body is always, when you hit that stage, it will start to gain weight. So that's going to be one of my takeaways from this interview is that I'm going to start eating to 80% full. Because for me, stuffing myself is when I get full. Like that's the message that my brain right
Yeah.
now
And
believes.
we all have been taught that, like finish everything on your plate
Yes.
and you should get a burp, and that's when you know you're full. But it's like, no, you eat to a point where you're no longer hungry. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And as a child, I was extremely thin. So, for my mother and my grandmother, it was like stuffing me until they were satisfied.
Right, exactly. And the other thing with our South Asian genetics is that, we tend to have a lot more visceral fat deposited. So I had one client who was very lean, but she had very high HbA1c levels, which basically means that like her blood sugar is this constant blood sugar in her stream.
Mm,
And so I was shocked, but it is just our desi diet that we tend to gain all that on the abs
midriff.
and the midriff.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of visceral fat, which is fat between the intestines, which can be a cause for a lot of health conditions. But on the outside, we look fine. So that's where I tell all my clients is like, listen, don't fall for this whole, oh, she looks skinny, because you don't know, you could be fat on the inside, and that could be very dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, one final question before we wrap up this wonderful interview. So I'm in the field of self-love and teaching women to accept themselves as they are instead of always driving towards some future goal. When I get there, I will then like and respect myself and the
Yeah.
world will love me kind of, right? Idea. So how does self-love and self-acceptance like impact and affect the health and weight loss and fitness journey?
So, like I always insist on this is weight loss does not begin in the kitchen. It begins in your head.
Mm,
And you need to give yourself grace and compassion. Like there may be days where you are going to perform at 100% when it comes to your workout and nutrition. And there may be days when you have done 20%. That's okay. You are not heading into, it's not a race and it's not a deadline. And if your neighbor hit a goal and you're far behind, that is not your competition. Your goal should be just how well you are doing this, and how you are changing as a person in how you're thinking. And take your time, because many people think like fitness is a one and done thing. Like I'll get there and it'll be done. No, because your life is going to come throw curveballs at you. So it is best for you to take your time, and celebrate the small wins.
yes.
Celebrate the small wins, because it's worth it. It was a huge change for me. I'm in the fitness field, so for me, drinking like water and hitting my protein seems like nothing. But for somebody who's starting off from being on the couch all the time, walking 30 minutes is like a huge thing. And celebrate that, and be proud of that, because that required something within you, to pull out something within you to do that. Now there are like competitors out there who are able to do pull-ups. I can't even do a single pull-up. I can't.
I can't
For
either.
me, if I can manage to do one, I'm going to celebrate that and be like, oh yay, I did a pull-up. So I have fallen for this, where I compared myself to other competitors, and then I had to remind myself that look how far you've come. As
Yeah.
a mom of two, and I was the only South Asian at that competition, I was like, yes, I did not place anywhere, but in my community, I set an example. And I showed my kids like, hey, if you chase your dreams, you can do that. That, to me, that's a win. And so women especially are taught to just hate themselves and
Yes.
be down on themselves, because there's an expectation that we have to be perfect. And I would say the messier you are, the better you're going to do this. The more you mess up, the more you're
Mm.
consistent with it.
Yeah, I always tell my clients you cannot hate yourself into a version you love. I
Yeah.
used to do that. I thought the more I like reject myself, put myself down, beat myself up, the faster I'll get to where I want to go. Because I thought being hard on yourself is what will deliver results until through my own life coaching that I received, I started to learn that in fact will get you further away from your goal,
Right.
right?
And stories we tell ourselves. I'm like, what? I was like, just ask yourself this one question. What if that story is not true? What if
Mm,
it's not true? And then pause for that answer. And you're going to lean towards like, yeah, it's probably not true. Because a lot of the stories are stories we hear others telling us about ourselves.
yes.
It's like what our parents told us or what we constantly heard from the external sources. And I'm like, be brave enough to write your own story. You might feel uncomfortable because you think you're displeasing someone, but in fact, those very people become your cheerleaders. They
Yes.
get a chance to cheer you on. So don't be afraid to write a different story about yourself.
Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves is so powerful. If we can change those stories, then the results we get in life will dramatically change as well.
Right, exactly. So it's just like, just give yourself compassion. You did one thing today, awesome. Some days I'm like a total mess. I've not eaten well. I have eaten very little and I've eaten junk. The way I reset is I go to bed early. And then
Mm,
I'm proud of myself for that. I went
yes.
early. That's my win from yesterday, and I'm going to hold on to that.
Yeah, I'm reading this book called The Gap and the Gain, and it talks about this mindset of like, what do you focus on? Are you focusing on the gap, which basically is when you're measuring yourself against an ideal and you don't feel like you are anywhere close, right? So, which means you feel down, you're beating yourself up, versus focusing on the gain, which is you're measuring it yourself against yourself, but you're also looking at the progress you've made, right? And
Yes.
this book is so powerful right now because the more I listen to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the gap more than I realize it,
Right. Yeah.
And I think this applies to weight loss and nutrition. It applies to everything in life. Like, how much can we look at life through the gains we've made rather than
Yes.
the gap we're living in?
Exactly. Yeah. Right now, the ladies I'm working with, they were like, all they had to do is hit 8 to 10,000 steps. And one of them was like, listen, I can't, don't think I can do 8,000 even. I was like, okay, let's just do 1,000 extra from what you've been doing.
I
Like,
love
oh,
that.
okay, that's doable. And she did. And I was like, that's a win. Like, celebrate that win. That's huge because you made a conscious effort to change something. It's not easy to make that change. You did it. So I want to like encourage women, like, listen, be proud of every little thing you do, okay? Because if it's a man, they're proud of every little thing they do.
Of
And
the
then,
dishes they did.
yeah, okay. And women are just like, no, but that's all I did. That's not enough. No, no, no.
Yes.
That's huge, especially if you did it as a mom who has a job and kids and a husband and in-laws to take care of. That's huge.
Yes, yes. Well, Charmy, thank you so much. This conversation has been so fun, enlightening. I know I've learned a lot of things and I'm going to go away and implement just one or two things, not everything that we've talked about, just
Right.
one or two
Just one or
things.
two things, exactly,
Yes.
consistently. That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah, where can our listeners find you, follow you, reach out to you if they're interested in the work that you're doing?
Right. So I am very active on Facebook. It's Simply Fit, Cimply. And I also, so Simply Fit is two words. I also have a private Facebook group, which is free for anyone to join, where I share a ton of value. And it has a lot of guides and resources there. And that is called Simply Fit Inner Circle. So that's all one word. But if they just go to Simply Fit and just browse through, they'll probably find the link to the group.
Yeah, and to our listeners, I will be dropping those links into the show notes so you can always scroll down and find those links as well. Charmy, thank you
Thank you.
so much for your
It
time.
was a
You've
lot
been
of fun. I
amazing.
really had fun chatting about things. So thank you for
Yes.
inviting me.
Yeah, until the next time, take
Thank you.
care.
Bye, Visa.